Right, you are right. We are live. It's just amazing. It just gave us a message that said it stopped streaming, but you know what? We're going to keep on going.
We push through.
No, every Monday at 12 o'clock, we have these meetings, these lunch meetings where they are just intended to continue to grow us as CEOs, as high achieving women, as mothers, as daughters, as friends, all of the above. And this week is when it's usually our married to a CEO chick week, but we wanted to kind of take that and really expand the definition of married, because there are many ways that you could be married to a CEO chick. You could be in relationship with a CEO chick. And so we're going to focus on that. But before we get there, we want to highlight you and congratulate you. I have the humble opportunity on behalf of the CEO Chicks Network to congratulate you on your crown. I want you to share what that experience was like, because I know that this was an unexpected for you that ended in victory. So please share.
No, absolutely. Schellie, thank you so much for the congratulations. It was really a surprise. And I know that we always talk about being strong women, being winners, going in expecting to have the victory, going in expecting to win. But I honestly was. But at the same time, when I looked at the caliber of women around me, it wasn't such a comparison as it was, oh my goodness, I'm surrounded by all these amazing women in this competition. There was a doctor, there were CEOs, and I was like, well, I'm just happy to be here, first of all, because I joined the competition as the last contestant.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was, I guess someone couldn't make it and they were still looking, and they opened it back up because the cutoff had already come and gone. And so today when I was thinking, what can I share with Schellie and the ladies? And again, it's just such an honor to do this. Thank you, Colleen. I was thinking, man, I was surrounded by faith, favor, and friends for this whole journey. And those three words kept popping up in my mind. Favor, because the competition deadline closed. So there's no reason why I should have been even able to get in, but they opened it up. I spent 3 days, 2.5 days at this amazing event, the Miss Corporate America competition 2019. It was in June. And first thing when you walk in, they do icebreakers, networking. They want the women to come in and get to know each other. The following day, the first day is all about connecting. The following day was the interview. So think Miss America meets Shark Tank. and that's really what it is. It was a competition to really highlight the accomplishments of business women, and it was so beautiful. And there was no swimsuit and no talent. So I said, I'm in, I'm going to do this. So the third day, we got up on stage. We had a fun dance routine. We would all become friends at that point. We were just laughing and having a great time. We got on stage. We did our number for the evening. And at the end, they called my name, and I literally hesitated. Schellie, I was there. I was clapping for all the runners up, and I was just beaming because I was so excited for the girls. And then they said, and our winner for Mrs. Corporate America is Candita Bryant. And I said, what now? I didn't expect it. And at the same time, I had been praying for God's favor. The whole reason why I got into this competition was because of a friend. So from faith, favor to friend, it was all just of the perfect mixture to come together. And so now I have a reign for a year.
That is so amazing. Not only is she Mrs. Corporate America, Candy is the Chief Executive Officer, founder of Good Morning Ladies. A little bit about that and what you do there and your impact there, and then we'll go back to your platform.
Absolutely. So 2 years ago, I started Good Morning Ladies. It was actually as a result of me just taking downtime. I was literally down healing, going through the healing process. If some of the ladies from CEO Chicks have not seen my story, I am a stage 3 breast cancer survivor, and I found the cancer in 2016. 2017 had that double mastectomy, and then 2017-18 was really recovering. And so I had time to recover, and I was sitting there one day and I said, I've been in corporate America for 18 years, same company. I put all my heart and my passion into working for corporate America. And don't get me wrong, I love my job and I love my team at work because they supported me through my journey and through the years. But I said, when am I going to do something for Candy? When am I going to do something that First of all, I went to, and I graduated from UCF with a bachelor's in communications, broadcasting. I wanted to, from a very young age, wanted to be a broadcaster, either on the news or in entertainment of some kind. I knew I wanted to be either the producer behind the camera or in front of the camera with a media ministry, encouraging women. And as it was that moment that I said, well, everyone's podcasting. It seems easy. You can get in the door for free. Let me start a podcast and see where it goes. And that's how Good Morning Ladies was born. I had already been doing that. I had already been gathering women from all across the country on our prayer call. We had a prayer call, and we'd have guest speakers every week. We're still doing it for 10 years now. Every Wednesday morning, we get on with a speaker and we hear a word of encouragement. And I said, well, I can turn that into a podcast. That's easy, done. And so it was just amazing to reach out to women like yourself who've been on the podcast. It's all about women's testimonies and encouraging, and we say it's encouraging women worldwide. So the Good Morning Ladies podcast is on iTunes or on goodmorningladies.org.
Tell us a little bit more. I mean, you've talked about your victory, and you are very, very transparent about how it's a daily process of overcoming. Tell us a little bit more about your platform and how the dynamic of or the needed spirit of perseverance helped you through, like that capacity of never giving up and having the attitude and having the mindset of I will overcome, and how important that was in your process and how important that is for other business owners.
No, absolutely. You know, I had the opportunity through the Mrs. Corporate America organization to volunteer for a foster and adoptive parent association here in Kissimmee. I walked in the room, and they were doing Christmas in July. They were giving out toys to these foster children. So as I looked across the room, the first thing I said to myself was, man, I planned on coming in here talking about success and victory and winning and overcoming. But I'm looking at these children's faces and knowing they had some real challenges they've gone through. Talk about perseverance. Going through this experience and being a part of these organizations, going and volunteering my time, going to speak, I've been so deeply impacted, more than, hopefully they've been impacted too if something I shared was encouraging. But I stood there and I said, well, I'm going to tell my whole story. And my whole story is that I was adopted. So I was an orphan. And when I was trying to make a connection with these kids in the room and talking about persevering and overcoming, I said, well, I've never even shared the story. This is the first time I'm sharing it. And I shared it in the room that I knew I had purpose because I was born in another country. My whole life would be completely different had the favor of God not been on my life. And my parents came down from New Jersey, adopted me from Colombia, brought me back to New Jersey, and my whole life has been marked by purpose since then. When the cancer journey started, I knew that there was a purpose behind it. And even if it was just me and my mindset saying, no, there's going to be a purpose from this. Even if other people don't feel like it is and they feel devastated by a diagnosis like that, I made a decision. So persevering it's sometimes we want to make it so like just inspirational and motivational. Sometimes it's a decision. You have to decide to persevere. And so after the diagnosis, I went through my ups and downs, and I was very transparent, like you said, about my journey and what was going on. I was sharing it on Facebook. And I went through a depression after I lost my mom last year. And I've talked about that as well. I didn't want to do anything leading up to this competition, right before the competition. If it had not been for a few key friends in my life to push me to make another decision to get back up and continue to persevere, I might not even be sitting here doing this or being a part of this amazing opportunity. But for me, from the beginning, perseverance has always been about a decision to get back up and keep on moving. And so to answer that question, I feel like we can kind of think that perseverance is going to come, think that the will to win, the will to have victory over anything, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's being where you came from, how you came into this world, if you were orphaned, if you were a foster kid, if you were abused, we think that might just show up automatically because we have an inspirational story. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you have to choose.
Now, and I'm happy that you said that because you said it's a decision. And I think that with us, especially in this network, we all have different spheres of influence. We are all dominating on different mountains. We have different abilities. We have different anointing, right? But the one thing that's important is that we have to have that spirit of perseverance, because there will often be times where what we expect is not what it looks like. What we see in front of us is not what we expected. What we see in front of us is not the outcome that we want. And so being able to push past what you're seeing,
Yeah.
and continue to believe in the outcome, continue to believe in the dream, the vision, all of the blood, sweat, and tears, and really believing that that will come to pass is a
Yes.
skill, and it is a decision. It is a decision that's followed, that has to be followed up with a series of skills that can keep us on track no matter what it looks like. And so when you talk about it started with a decision, I just want you to kind of go back and what's the how? What's the how in persevering? How do we continue to push forward when when the outcomes don't necessarily look like what we expected?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question to bring it back to the things that were on my heart. When you reached out to me, I said, I can't talk about perseverance and I can't talk about this decision without talking about my faith. And so as a part of the Good Morning Ladies brand, I started writing devotionals. I write daily devotionals on our Good Morning Ladies Facebook page. And every day that I'm studying what God's word says about me, I believe it a little more. Every day when I go and I'm examining his word, I'm learning more and more about the freedom and the victory that he's already given me. And so the how for me is these three things. It's faith, it's favor, and it's friends. When I think about the journey of going through cancer, I've seen a lot of women, and I've met a lot of women who walked through this journey by now, 3 years later. And one thing that separates some women from others is if they were walking in a mindset of faith, were they getting what they needed in their spirit to carry their body? Because I feel like the spirit is first. What I do in my spiritual walk completely impacts what happens in the physical. But the second piece of this is friends. I was surrounded by, as I mentioned, I had a women's ministry for all these years. I was already surrounded by women of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Women who were going to speak life to me when I felt horrible, when I felt like I didn't want to get up, when I felt like, man, I have to drive to work with chemo and going through my body, and it makes you a different person. When I was wondering, am I going to be able to focus on work and still achieve, or were they going to let me go because I couldn't really function well? I had friends at work helping me. And so the how for me has been relying on my daily time in my faith walk, then surrounding myself by friends who were stronger, who were full of faith, who were going to speak life. And even when I think about entering this competition, Schellie, I didn't know anything. I knew a little bit about it, but if it wasn't for Miss Courtney Shaw, I would be remiss if I didn't shout her out, texting me one night and said, "So you going to do it?" Just, she's real straightforward. And I said, well, yes, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it afraid. But she had already been prepping me. She had already been pushing me out of the depression that I'd gone through last year. She had been meeting with me. She's like, let's do lunch. And she was already running her race. So you need friends that are already running their race in whatever area they're in, because sometimes you need to be pulled along. And if someone's running, they have a lot more momentum to pull you along than someone who's just kind of, lollygagging along. But I was surrounding myself with women who are running the race of faith, running the race in business and in life. And that led to favor and lots of open doors. And I could touch on favor a little later.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Because one of the things that you just highlighted was the importance of your faith walk. And so I think that when we talk about the how behind things, because one of the things that you will see in all of our lunch calls, our webinars, our teachings, is that we want things to be practical. We want our members, we want our listeners to walk away with practical things that they can apply to take themselves to the next level. And you just highlighted the importance of having or of being strong in faith in order to persevere, that there's no perseverance without faith and standing really firm on truth, because truth may not always be the facts.
Yeah,
right?
right.
The facts may be, the facts will stop people from pushing forward in their business. And so the truth is not always facts.
Yeah.
So that is the important thing, to be able to call a fact a lie because it's not your truth. When you know what your next is and what your outcome is and what the end is, and you stay flat-footed on that end, that is about being able to look at a fact and call it a lie. That comes from faith. You talk about having faithful friends, faith-filled friends, friends that are running the race, you said, running the race of faith, running the race in their business, that were able to to bring you along. And so I would assume you're talking about aligning ourselves with women strong, and maybe sometimes from our perspective, stronger in that moment, stronger in that season, more knowledgeable in that moment. And I think that's important. Say that. It brought me to one of the topics that we wanted to touch on today, and that is why so often relationships among high achieving women, specifically as we relate to one another, it just seems like the enemy attacks that and keeps us from being support one another. I want you to tell me a little bit about your experience with that, and we'll go a little bit more about dynamics. Just women, high achieving women, not being supportive of one another and not availing ourselves to one another to truly be that supportive friend.
No, that is so good that you touched on that, because I think in our faith circles, in our Christian circles, or whatever faith that you may be a part of, it's easy to let your guard down and to connect and to build each other up, because it's kind of expected in the faith-based community. When we get into business, and you and I have been in business for a long time, when you get into that competitive world, it changes for some people. And whether if I'm a believer at home, I'm a believer at work, I'm a believer at church, I'm everywhere. My goal is to be consistent and to do what God has called me to do. Sometimes that gets thrown out the window when we get into things like a competition, for example. I will tell you that when I walked in on day one of the Miss Corporate America competition, everyone kept saying, man, this doesn't feel like a competition. It just doesn't feel like a competition. What is this thing? And I know that the women in the room, we all were women of faith. And as we began to share, we had to do icebreakers and share a little bit about ourselves. Every single person was sharing something about their faith walk. And at that point, all the guards came down. And I think there was just this common thread of, if you win, I win. If you win, I win. And it was something that I know doesn't happen in probably any other pageant competition world that I know of. But I think that the common thread was, I'm going to cheer for you if you win. And after this competition, what's our next step? How do we win together? We were already planning, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to visit each other? Are we going to show up for people's events? Are we going to buy their books? Are we going to sign up for their programs? We were already talking that lingo and having that dialogue about how do we all win. And that was what made all the difference in this competition in particular. And having a group of women that weren't catty, that weren't fighting for this prize. We actually were all working together. And even after the competition, the proof is in the pudding, because now we're doing one thing that was my goal, is because we all have giftings. I know you probably taken personality tests for work, and I'm sorry, you are a psychotherapist, so of course you have to remember who I'm talking to here. And every time I take a personality test, my gift is to bring people together. My natural gift is to bring women together. And so a part of my platform for 2019-2020 was to go back and reach out to all the 12 years of contestants, all of the people as part of the organization, and bring us together for a common goal. And our theme this year is unity. And I was able to do that because the way was made for me during the competition days. I could see clearly that, man, we can do so much more together. We can do so much more together. And so that has been my mindset. That's my platform for 2020, in addition to the breast health awareness And Good Morning Ladies, it's really unity and bringing women in this community together. And we're going to have some events coming up. So I hope CEO Chicks can also join in this big unity push that we have for 2019, 2020. But yeah, it was really about how do we all win together.
Now, and I love that we can do more together. I'd like you to take a jump at diagnosing the woman that is not able to authentically support another. What do you say about that woman, that person? And it may be someone who's listening today who really has a hard time, in their little closet. They struggle with the success of other women. They struggle with celebrating other women. And I don't think that's something that we always verbalize, but sometimes it may be manifested in behaviors. It's clear that there is a lack of support there. So how do you diagnose that woman that has not found it within herself to be authentically supportive of another rising woman?
Well, I'm just going to be very honest, and I'm usually transparent, but there's a lot of wounded warriors out there. There's a lot of wounded women, and it is baby steps. I wasn't always here to be like the coordinator of women getting together. You know me, Schellie, I don't have to be the guest speaker. I want someone else to go and share the platform and go speak. Let me do the behind the scenes of pulling it together. That wasn't always the case. I went through a season where I was feeling competitive and like I had to prove myself. I had to step on someone to achieve something. And that came from, just being immature in my early 20s. And also feeling like someone had slighted me, someone had backstabbed. And then I became very guarded, very wounded. And I think it wasn't until I just kept getting back up and getting back out there to see, okay, there's got to be an authentic group of women. There's got to be like a CEO chick type of group of women that are going to be for you and not about the drama. So what I've seen in my experience of women that have a hard time pushing past the having a hard time celebrating and uplifting other women is there's a level of woundedness there. What helped me to get past that was surrounding myself with 2 or 3 key people that helped the healing process, that I began the trust relationship. The reason why people do things like that is out of fear. It's a fear-based reaction, and it's a self-preservation reaction to hurt that they've experienced in the past. But I will tell you, and if anyone is listening and they've closed their heart and you're operating out of fear, those are also some things, if I can speak from a faith-based perspective, that the Word of God talks about the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. There's constantly an illusion of us being attacked, and we can always go into the victim mode if we want to, but that is the place where your gift is stifled. That is the place where your purpose is choked out. There's nothing that you can give. There's really not even any place you can elevate to when you're stuck in that mode. And so it's critical. It's a matter of life and death of your vision, your purpose, to open up your heart and get connected in a safe space. Because if you notice that you are that type of person, that right now you're like, I don't even want to deal with these women over here. I don't want to get connected. You have to recognize first that if those thoughts and that's how you're speaking to yourself, that is a place of woundedness. That is a place where fear is really gripped you to the point where you don't want to trust anymore. And once I surrounded myself by some loving women like Schellie Fan, like Courtney Shaw, and some other key women in my life blossomed. I mean, it really opened up, and it's baby steps. It's not all at once. Now you want to be, the woman of the year with all these women surrounding you. It's open up your heart, and I promise that will be the place where your vision gets birthed, where someone's pushing you into purpose. And until then, you will continue to find negativity and drama and things like that surrounding you. So that's my encouragement for that woman that might be listening.
You said it so well, because I think that we are, oh, she's a hater and she's jealous and she's envious, but you put a different spin on it, that that is a wounded woman who needs healing, and healing that would come by way of aligning with even two or three strong women who are
Yeah.
of her in order for her to heal. That's the how behind that, and I love that. Let's talk about some different relationship dynamics that sometimes cause, and we talked about it just now, just the inability to support one another. I want to go into some other dynamics that break that ability for strong women to connect and just be together. Because when we're talking about married to a CEO chick, like I said earlier, there are many ways married to a CEO chick. You are married to my purpose. You call, what's going on with Ash Schellie? You knew, you were one of the ones that knew about it before it even released, right? And you would text like, what's going on with that? And let's talk about it. Let's go out. You became married to my purpose. That's amazing. So there are many different ways to be married to a CEO chick. And if you are not healed, you can feel a way about woman that you're married to see her go from level to level to level and keep cheering her on. There's a saying that I saw the other day, and it said, learn to admire without the desire.
Hmm.
It was, and you can peel that apart in so many different ways, right? Learn to admire without the desire. Learn to admire Colleen in London and in Napa Valley. You know, learn to admire Candy, who won the crown. So there is a difference there between the admiring and keeping it from being a desiring that can become that can be rooted spirit of envy and jealousy. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. How do we keep ourselves in the admire and celebrate, and not necessarily slip into desire that may come from a place of envy?
Well, I think we have to keep perspective. And so my perspective every morning is, God, you called me to something great. You called me to a specific purpose. And sometimes when we don't feel like we have great purpose, we don't feel like there's anything for us, we can look at that person who's achieving a high achiever, and instant, jealousy or, resentment can rise towards that person. And I think the key here, at least for me, and I can only speak for my experience, is keeping my perspective aligned with God's word. And that means that what he has for me is for me. That means that what he has for me is amazing. And I don't have to necessarily desire what someone else has. It might be something I want to aspire to. I mean, I do want to go to Europe, by the way. I want to go overseas. And so, but having the right perspective makes me say, ooh, they did it. They went overseas. They're celebrating. They're taking their business over there. God, I want that for my business. I want it to go worldwide, and maybe I can align myself with CEO chicks and they can coach me on how to take my business to the next level. It's having that right perspective of a positive mindset towards anything that happens for anyone that's good. I take the road of having a positive mindset and, God, what do you have for me in this relationship that, I can benefit from? What do you have for me in this relationship that I can give? It's not all one-sided. And so I think just having that perspective of, you call me to something. I don't have to be fearful that someone's going to go take something from me. What you have for me, I'm an individual. There's no one like me on this planet. There's no one like Schellie on this planet. He made you uniquely and specifically, and even said, I know the plans that I have for you, plans that are for your good, not for your harm, to give you a hope and a future. Now, if he said that, then there's hope, there's a future, there's prosperity, there's good. And so your purpose and your dreams and your business you should never feel threatened that someone else is going to step on your shine, because no one's going to step on what God has called you to. Now, if you're doing something that God hasn't called you to and you're struggling in that area, now that's a whole nother thing. But when you're walking in purpose and you have the right perspective that, you know what, this is kind of not a popular phrase, I would say, in today's society, but it is not about me. It's not all about me. I'm sorry. It's about his purpose. It's about what I've been called to do. If I remove Candy from the mix, now feeling some type of way, being in my feelings, the up and down emotions, that's kind of gone. I'm focused and my perspective is on his calling. My focus and my perspective is on giving him glory, taking myself out of the center and being faith-centered, God-centered. It really frees me to be able to celebrate someone, because I'm like, God, if you did it for Colleen, you're going to do it for me. If you did it for Schellie, you're going to do it for me. It's a place of encouragement. And so I really think it's a perspective shift. It's a paradigm shift, because in today's world, it's do you, all about you. You only live once, go for it. And the more we become you-centered, me-centered, me-centric, the more the perspective and the focus comes off of this great plan that has been given to you by God. And so that can lead to being in your feelings mostly.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then feelings become facts, and then things just get messy from there. One of the things that we often say in our network, there's no competition in your lane. There's no need to feel like someone is going to cross into your lane, that someone's going to get out of your lane or outdo you in your lane, because when you're in your lane, there is no competition in your lane. That light will shine just as long as we are in purpose, like you said. Then we have to understand that there is no competition when we are in our lane. No one can speak like me. No one can speak like you. No one can encourage like you. No one can encourage like me. We both encourage in different ways. We're both, and we do it in different ways, and it's okay. And I don't need to step into your lane. You don't need to step into mine, because God has anointed you right where you are.
Right.
So how can somebody guard themselves from people that they are connected with, women that they are connected with, that don't know their purpose? And sometimes that they can, women who there's two things there's a lot of things that could happen. I want to focus on two things. The first possible outcome is when a woman who does not know her purpose and gets so lost in yours, she loses her identity. Yeah. And I think that we see that a lot as well in relation with high achieving women. That one woman who is just so tied and linked to you, and it's great, but it becomes a place where it's no longer, it's more, it's less support and more of her not doing what she's called to do, because she's so linked. And do you see what I'm saying? Like, the support is good, but when you lose yourself in it, not walking in God's given purpose for your life, how do we deal with that woman?
So I've had the women's ministry for 10 years, and that developed and grew into Good Morning Ladies. But, for 10 years, I've been doing life with almost the same group of women. We've grown, so it's, different, and different women move and transitions, and they can't always join the prayer call. But I've been always in women's ministry. So I feel like I've grown to be kind of an expert in how to have flourishing relationships when you have, and I was writing because I thought about something I heard from my pastor, that in your life, you have mentors, you have peers, and then you have people that you're mentoring. And so when I look at the women in my life, I know that I fit into their life at a certain place. It might be that they're mentoring me. There are some women who are peers, so we're on the same level. And there are women that I might be their mentee. So when I think about how do we handle, I think the wrong way is to want to cut off everyone in our lives who's not where we are. And it's just my opinion. There are going to be women who are not there and where you are on that journey. They might be just starting out, going back to school. They might be just getting ready to start their business. And here you are, 10 years into your business and it's successful. But I fully believe, Schellie, that when we're on purpose and we're serving God in that purpose, He plants us in people's lives. And if we kind of have the wrong perspective, we will miss out on opportunities to mentor, be a peer, or be mentored. And so for those women who are in our lives that may be struggling And I've had some of those as part of our ministry. They were really struggling. They were struggling with hurt. They were struggling with broken friendships and relationships that made them very guarded, made them very skeptical. I've been working with women who just don't feel like their purpose is significant, that they want to start a business, they want to step out in purpose, but they're just so discouraged, and you hear the discouragement all the time. So my natural instinct is, okay, I got to keep it moving. I got to keep it moving. I don't have time for this right now. When really, in some cases, we have to have boundaries, but in some cases, God is calling me to just stop for that person, pray with them, connect, link arms, and just say, you know, what kind of resources can I help you get? Talk to me about what the things are that are really causing you to be fearful and not walk out what you want to do. We can only do what we can do, honestly. But if there are resources I can get a woman to, I'm quick to do that. I'm quick to connect someone, you know this. I'm quick to send someone who needs therapy over to the best therapist I know. I'm quick to send someone who needs to start a business over to the best businesswoman I know. I don't have to be the all in all because I've taken a role as a mentor. I can be a connector. And I hear Courtney say that all the time. She's a connector. So I think with those challenging relationships, we need to ask for guidance from God. You know, how do you want me to function in this relationship? Because it could turn out to be the biggest blessing of our lives when we see someone blossom. And I know as part of CEO Chicks, you and Colleen have seen that. Women starting at one point, and then you get to see them when they have that breakthrough, and you're happy that you stayed in their life. You're happy that you connected because God chose you and used you. He's not here, so he needs us to be hands and feet. And so when I think about that, I really think about the mentee-mentor role and what it plays in helping people to develop and women to develop.
You said something so good. You talked about fear. I think that we have to be able to discern when the support that we're getting from someone, that wholehearted support is really it's really coming from a place of fear. Yeah. That person may be fearing his or her own success or failure, and kind of hide behind the success of the person, and then it becomes more stunting than something that's purposeful and thriving. When do we, as the person who may be in the position of thriving, at what point do we have to discern that this person needs to be set free? I have to let this person go to find themselves, because as much as I love the support that I'm getting, this is not going to contribute to the growth of the person. When do we get to that point and be honest with ourselves enough to let the supportive go so that they can find their own purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about women that you may be surrounded with that are striving but have not arrived yet at where they want to be.
Correct.
I did have a situation where there was a young lady who I kept pouring into, kept giving advice or sending her to someplace where there were resources. And at some points along the way, the advice wasn't received, or they said they would take action, but they didn't. And we, as women, how do I put this? We're finite. We have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of hours in the day, and really a limited amount of energy, right? We're not God, who is infinite and he can do it all. We'd like to say we do it all, but we really can't. At some point you have to sleep. At some point you have to be focused on your family. At some point you have to make sure that you're not pouring out so much that there's nothing left for yourself, because you're no good for anyone if all you're doing is just being poured out all the time. So at some point I took inventory, and I would say this to anyone who's like, I don't know if I should let this relationship go, or, I'll feel really guilty. First of all, there's no guilt there. You're not their God. God is God, and he will take care of them. But the thing of it is I took inventory. All right. Did I give her the advice that she needed? Was I there in supplying some of the resource she asked for? Did I follow up? Was I there when she needed to talk? I took inventory of, okay, Do I feel like I've done all I can, honestly? And then at the point where I said, yeah, you know, Candy, you did supply the resources. You did give advice. You did even maybe walk out some processes with this person, and they just weren't ready to move forward. And at that point, you feel like you're forcing it. And I said, whenever you're ready, feel free to give me a call. And I let go. And that was the most freeing feeling. There was no guilt associated with that, especially when I took inventory before disengaging to say, you know, was there anything I could have done differently? Did I do all I think I could have done? And the answer was yes. And so at that point, you have to let go, because you can't continue to just pour out, and it's just running out. It's going in one side and just coming right out the other, and there's nothing being retained and nothing being acted on. So
It's important to see the growth. That's good. And sometimes that growth comes by letting them go.
yeah.
So they're able to find it themselves. That's so good. I talked about the dynamic of you know, individuals who are wounded not being able to support. We talked about many different dynamics, you know, in relationships that may cause women to not be able to connect and be powerful, connected with one another. I want to talk about the controlling spirit for a little bit. And you talked about being in ministry for, and we have seen it, you know, we call it the spirit of Jezebel, and how that has torn down ministries and organizations, groups and friendships, and so that spirit, and how it sometimes finds its way in our relationships and high, you know, within the high executive, the high achieving women CEOs. How do we guard ourselves from that, protect ourselves from that, to continue to thrive together?
You know, it's as someone who's a project manager today, so I've been a project manager for several years at Sprint. Mm-hmm. And part of a project manager's role is to control the flow of a project and to take the lead. When you are operating in that role as a project manager, you also come to the quick realization that, depending on how big the project is, if it's a massive undertaking, the best thing you can do is to have all the key players in place so that you don't have to have control over every inch of the process. You will quickly burn yourself out. And so what good project managers do is you get the key individuals in place who have the right skill set to take care of the job, and you let that go. And sometimes in organizations, especially in women's organizations, and even I'm a part of Miss Corporate America now, and just learning how these relationships internally I'll call it MCA, refer to it as MCA, as I learn the dynamic of the relationships, there are certain times when we are taking on different roles. And sometimes, you know, like as every organization, there are times where people are stepping on each other's toes. And for us as women, not operating from in a spirit of fear and worrying about someone taking your shine or taking control, I've learned over the years to relinquish control to the people who have the expertise for that particular area. Every time I've done that, Schellie, my project was amazing. Every time I had a project where I thought I wanted to control every single piece and I wanted to jump into someone else's lane to do their job or to tell them how to do it and to try to also do what I have to do, I always would lose the bigger picture. As a project manager, your eyes are on the bigger picture. What's the outcome? Are we going in the right direction? Are we meeting our timelines? Are we within our budget? Are we meeting all the constraints of the project? But when I'm jumping into everyone's lane to control and to really, it does all come back to a spirit of fear and worry. We can always try to get away from the spiritual realm, but at the end of the day, when you're operating under a spirit of control, it's really a spirit of fear. And so as women who are winning and victorious and walking fearlessly, if you find yourself in a position that you're constantly needing to be in control, if it's in the home, if it's in your marriage, if it's in the workplace, if it's in your friendships, if you're that one that always needs to be in control, there is always, and I don't care what anybody says, there's always an underlying root of fear there. And so to be able to relinquish that fear and relinquish control and say, you know what? I trust that this person who's in my life or in my project is going to do what they have to do. And I need to just continue to be the overseer every time my project has come out amazing. It was not the case when I felt like I had to jump in to control something, because sometimes, and I'll leave you with this, Schellie, sometimes I will be putting together an event and I'll have this vision for it, and it's like amazing, and I want it to come out this way. And someone will come along and I may not be able to do that particular function, so I give it over to that person, and then they're not doing it the way I wanted them to do it. And so I feel like I have to jump in and I have to step over them and do whatever it is that I asked them to do. I've seen many times where I decide, I go to jump in, and all of a sudden something will say, don't do that. Just let it play out. Let that person have control. And what happens is my project didn't come out necessarily what I wanted it to look like, but maybe even better. And I'm not talking about someone who's taking the project and derailing it. I'm talking about someone with a different perspective, a fresh idea that I didn't think about, a way to save money, a way to save time. And had I jumped in and thought that I knew it all and could take over their role, it might have cost more, taken longer, might have been walking around that desert for 40 years when I could have just went right to the promised land. I take myself of course, if I'm constantly in a place of needing to be in control, and really that's rooted in fear and not being able to trust in the relationships around you.
That's we're running out of time, but I also wanted to touch on other aspects and other dynamics that sometimes do come in to break that connection power. I just want to keep saying that, because it is. I mean, if we were all connected, oh my God, we are stronger together. We are stronger together. The victory is in doing it together. I know that just recently I had a very conversation with someone about the spirit of narcissism and just that narcissistic personality trait. That narcissistic personality trait, I win when you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Win. There's no we win. I win because you lose. And we have to be really careful when we are surrounding ourselves with people that have that mentality, that I win when you lose, because that's when sabotage comes in and backbiting and things. So we have to be gatekeepers around our vision, around, what, and making sure that we are connected with like-minded folks. And you said something really powerful earlier. You said, it's not that I would just walk away or cut that person out. I think that we have to really assess the season that we're in and how can we pour out into this person. Is it my season to do that? Can I bring this person to a place of healing? Because it all comes from a place of woundedness. Narcissism comes from a place of woundedness, a place of brokenness, right? This idea that I win when you lose. And then you have the people that have that same mentality, quiet about it. I was doing a workshop on passive aggression the other day, and someone called it quiet control.
Yeah, that's good.
She called it silent control. This is the person that is tearing you to pieces, smiling in your face, and just so passive about what they're doing to aggressively tear you down. I think those outcomes are, or those individuals, more clear that that is when you are entering into possible toxic relationships, and the importance of guarding yourself from that toxicity, as opposed to helping a woman overcome that to get to a place of wholeness. I think there is a place where we have to draw the line with toxic individuals and say that it may not be my season to serve in this place and to tolerate this, because we have to be able to be gatekeepers around what we are carrying. And there are people that have that they're very passive about holding you down and about you celebrating your loss, right? And people who win when you lose. And so what are your thoughts about that? I mean, I know we are people of God. When is it okay to say it's a cutoff? It's a straight cut because I'm carrying too much and I cannot do this anymore.
Absolutely. I think of relationships that I've had where I drew the line and I said, this is not healthy for me. This is not going to be healthy for the other person. And so I had to let that relationship go with the mindset of, God bless that person to continue to find what purpose it is that they need to have in you. I have a very, I've tried to build a discipline in my life where even when I'm exiting a relationship, my mindset is a mindset of prayer. My faith still has to play a role even in how I exit a relationship because it's my witness. I can easily cut someone off, pick up the phone, curse that person out, tell them how I feel, dump all my emotions and everything on them, and cut it off, and that be that. But as women of faith, we need to choose to have more grace in relationships. Even when you're cutting someone off, there's this just a way to do it that will always bless your life. And so I had someone in my life who I knew that this relationship and this business partnership wasn't going to go any further. And even in my emotions, even though I might have been angry, might have been upset, it was what was coming out of my mouth that I decided, I made a choice for it to be grace. And when it ended, that working relationship ended, fast forward 2.5 years later, when I see the person, there's no animosity, and we're actually able to reconnect at a certain level. And it was all in how I exited that last interaction. But I will say, Schellie, and I'll leave you with this. Thank you so much again for the time. It's been great speaking to you. I talked about faith, friends, and favor. Every day when I wake up, I've been teaching my 7-year-old to do this as well. We make a declaration over our day. We make a declaration over our life. And I constantly lay my hands on her and I say, God, I pray the favor of God on Jordan right now. And I pray for God's favor over my life, for open doors, right relationships, right connections, favor for God to close doors in other areas where I don't need to be, or relationships where I don't need to be. And I ask for his favor. And when I've seen what that favor does, it's God making a way, God closing off doors, like as a changing maze, like he will have me walking through this journey, and he'll say, nope, not that person today. Nope, not that decision today. And as long as I'm asking for his favor, for his wisdom, and his guidance in these relationships and in doing business and doing life with people, I constantly hear his leading. And so for me, there's really, I know there's a science to it, and there's probably lots of studies on how to have these effective relationships. And at the end of the day, for many of us, it is going to be listening to the direction from God's Spirit, listening to the wisdom and the discernment. And sometimes when you are feeling like, ooh, this doesn't have a good feeling. This relationship, the way we're doing business, there's something dishonest here. There's something not right here. That's a discernment that we need to pay attention to as women. And so that is my encouragement, is to try to focus on at least those 3 pillars, is, walking in faith, having right friends and faith-filled friends around us, and asking God for his favor on every project, every business, every relationship. And I know that, I believe that he will make our way prosperous. So
I love it. CEO Chicks, Mrs. Bryan, we had her for a full hour. I know we had some technical difficulties, but this was so amazing. I think that in said about releasing people from your life, that we have to be able to redefine what connection looks like.
yeah.
Being connected to someone in a healthy way does not always mean that you are in physical proximity with them, that you are having dinner with them once a week or talking on the phone with them. Could be through the spirit realm alone, yes, where you have opted to just engage and stay connected with that person in prayer alone, praying for them, interceding for them. Understand that it is okay when you have entered into a space where that connection is prayer alone and not constant contact. So, and it is okay, especially when you're doing it from a good place, from a spiritual place. You feel spiritually led and you're discerning that this is what you need to do in this season, because it is very important that we are connected to whole people, that the people that we are mentoring, that we are constantly we're constantly in a process of watching them grow
Yeah.
and achieve their next level as well. Because really, in this season, what we can achieve connected is beyond what words can speak. And so this is why we wanted today on the different ways to be married to a CEO chick, those different ways that you're connected to a CEO chick, and assuring that those relationships are healthy and being mindful of those red flags. Where can we find you, Mrs. Bryant?
Oh, I am building up my devotional series, and I hope to be able to launch the Good Morning Ladies devotional series this time, in time for Christmas. So the goal is to have 2 devotional options, one for survivors or those who are caregivers for women going through breast cancer, but then a daily devotional by topic, whether it's operating in relationships and business and how to get over fear, anxiety. So I hope to have 2 devotional series sets that the ladies can find. And you can go to the website, goodmorningladies.org. Goodmorningladies.org is where you can hear the podcast and read some of the devotionals that are already out. And we're on Instagram as Good Morning Ladies Show, and also on Facebook.
Oh, we're going to be following you. Again, congratulations on your crown. You wear it so well.
Thank you, Schellie, and thank you to CEO Chicks for having me. This has been such a pleasure, and
Absolutely.
I look forward to doing another one in the future.
Oh, yes. We'll be calling you back. I told you that last year when you came and gave us like all the keys to being more aware of our bodies and self-checking our breasts. And that was an amazing, we gotta put that was an amazing teaching. And to pour out into us again this past hour, I thank you so much, Mrs. Queen, Mrs. Corporate America. Best wishes. Best wishes in being a light wherever you go. God is with you. You are definitely flowing in your anointing, and we celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.
For the rest of you CEO chicks, pray that you were blessed by this conversation and teaching on healthy relationships, being cognizant of those red flags, and making sure that you understand that there is so much power in us being connected. Connect with your fellow CEO chicks in a healthy manner, and remember, there is no competition in your lane. So continue to thrive and be all that God has called you to be. Best wishes to everybody. Blessed week. Bye-bye.
Bye.